Hi, everybody. Welcome to Life Stories Podcast, People Helping People. I'm Shara Goswick, your host. Today on the podcast, I chat with Amy Friessen, who started a company called Tea and Toast. I love the name of it. Amy helps people with the overwhelming task of finding assisted living for someone's aging parents, or also for people that are actually making the decision themselves to find a place that they need to be. There's so many things to think about, questions to ask, choices to make, and it can be a little bit much. And so Amy makes the process easy. She makes them feel comfortable, and she helps answer any questions that she can so that they can find exactly what they want. This is a great conversation. I think it's an important topic, and I thank you for being here. So are you really cold in Canada today?
We are always freezing in Canada.
Are you? We're freezing in Texas today, but that's not norm for us.
No, yeah, we had quite a number of snowstorms that
Oh,
come with
wow.
wind and a lot of snow. So,
Oh, gosh. Yeah.
yeah.
Well, I appreciate you talking to me today. I think what you do is important. And I know that, like, I think about several years ago, how many years ago? 15 years ago this year, my dad had a stroke. And my mom did not know even what questions to ask the doctors and the people working with. Like, she didn't even know. My husband is a physical therapist. He was able to go with her and he knew what to ask and what she was going to need. And so for people that can guide families and, adult children who are trying to find the best place for their parents, what you do is very important. And so I love it. And I know that everybody kind of faces this at some point in their lives, but I want to hear all about tea and toast, and I want to hear how you ever even got into this. Was this something that you had to do for your parents and you decided you were going to help other families, or is this something you just got into?
Yeah, completely opposite actually.
Oh, yeah.
I've been working in the retirement industry for 20 years.
Oh,
And
wow.
so I was working in marketing, which means that I was the person selling the homes.
Okay.
And I had clients and families coming to me all the time, and they really didn't know what they were doing. To your point, they've never been in the situation.
Yeah.
Uh, our history as a society, long-term care, retirement has only really been kind of around since the 60s-ish, right?
Yeah.
So people just don't have that experience. So more and more often, even though I worked at a couple different homes, more often I would just have people come in to see me, and they had no idea what they were looking
Yeah.
for. Some thought the location worked because that their house was nearby, but didn't like
Right.
take into consideration the care needs. It didn't take into consideration the budget, all of that. And people would just go home and be frustrated. And I would follow up with people more often than not to see, how are you doing? Can I answer any questions? And they, because they were so overwhelmed with the situation, would either be super sick, in
Yeah.
hospital, long-term care, or they have died. And it
Yeah.
was awful because they just got paralyzed with the unknown and they just didn't know how to make the next step.
Yeah.
No,
I can't imagine because there's so many things that you don't know. Like, you don't even know what you don't know. And
we
so,
really don't.
yeah. So tell me about your program. What do you do with tea and toast? I love the name of that, by the way. Where did you come up with the name for that?
I worked really hard. It was really hard to name
I
your
love
own
it. I think it's,
business. Well,
yeah,
and I thought that, I mean, the meaning behind tea and toast is twofold. It's to comfort our seniors and the people that are looking at this life change. A lot of
yeah,
them are very familiar with eating tea and toast. That's a warm, comfortable feeling.
yeah,
But then it's for the caregivers as well. When they see mom or dad or the loved one they're caring for, just start to eat that kind of for every meal. Then we turn
yeah,
to kind of a syndrome of tea and toast. And that, nutrition red flags. Oh, that's probably not a good idea. Maybe we should look into stuff. So it's an approachable name so people are comfortable with it, but it's also that red flag of, oh, wait a minute. I
yeah,
recognize that name because that is what my mother or my father is eating all the time. And
yeah.
so that's where the name came from. It took me a good while to come up with it. But I really enjoy it now. As you launch a business, you don't really know if people will be drawn to your name, for
Yeah,
instance. And now we're almost 11 years later. People pick us solely because of our name at
Oh,
times,
wow.
which is awesome, right?
Yeah.
They feel so comfortable and they have no prior knowledge whatsoever. And maybe you're in the hospital and the social worker says, here's a couple of companies that do this navigation piece, and they
Yeah.
literally choose us because of our comfortable name, which is exactly what I was going for.
Yes, it's very sweet. I love that name. So tell me, for a family or for an adult child that's looking to have their parent placed somewhere, tell me how your program works and how you help them figure out what to do.
Yeah, so we offer a couple different programs. Our main two, or sorry, main three really, are an elder care planning program where we sit with our clients and really help them figure out what next steps are, educate them on the whole senior living industry, talk to them about staying safe or home care or whatever that client needs at that time. We
Mhm.
also help people who are looking for long-term care, but the system is very overwhelming, much like retirement. It's all under the same kind of umbrella, but there's two distinct systems, kind of public and private, right? So we help with long-term care navigation and kind of figuring out which homes fit. And we do the same in retirement, but it's a more in-depth search because it's in the
Yeah.
private sector. There's a lot of other variables. There's more cost that we have to deal with, location specifics and all of that. So we really guide families from start to finish of, I don't know what's happening, I don't know what to do, and all the way through choosing a home, getting the people in place for moving or downsizing or all of that stuff. So we also work with, although we're in Canada, we also work with a lot of US caregivers and around the world because their
Mhm.
parents are here. And so we get calls all the time because no healthcare system's the same. And so we get
Right.
calls outside of Canada, even outside of our province, because no province is the same either.
Yeah.
To say, okay, my loved one lives there. What do I need to know? Can you walk me through the steps? Can I do virtual tours from my location so that I don't have to travel? All of that stuff
Yeah.
just to help the caregivers.
So if someone is calling from the state, from the United States, and they have family here, you can still help them find a place here, or are you helping people primarily find places in Canada?
We're helping the tangible actual service is in Ottawa,
Okay.
but because people need help all over, I've made an association across Canada. So we
Uh-huh.
have a lot of connected businesses. And then I've since also brought in or not brought in, but have made contact with US businesses that do similar because honestly, there's actually more US businesses that do this than Canadian. We're a
Okay.
little bit behind. And so we can help families for sure figure out, the elder care planning part. And then if they need
Yeah.
someone like us, I'm happy to look into who I know in that area as well.
Yeah.
Just to make sure that they have someone as an advocate, really.
Sure. And they need that. They definitely
Yeah.
need that. In all the families that you've worked with, I know we said, you don't know what you don't know, and it is overwhelming with all this stuff. But what are some common fears that people are facing having to find a place to live? Like, what are some common things that you help them with?
Oh, let me tell you about the fears.
I'm sure there's a lot.
Well, the number one really unknown, which is also a fear, is the difference between long-term care, which is the public system of
Yeah.
senior living, and retirement homes, which is the private system. How much care do they offer? How much are they, per month? All of that stuff.
Yeah.
Just unknowing the whole system is a big fear because a lot of people have an experience of maybe their grandparent being in one of these really old nursing homes at that time,
Mhm.
and that feeling that they got left with as a child, which comes with us, right? And
Yeah.
so they get really scared about that. And that's why we educate so heavily on it because there is a large difference.
Yeah.
Um, the caregivers are scared because sometimes what happens is someone who has cognitive decline, maybe they have dementia, maybe they have other things, a stroke or something that's happened, and they've made their kid promise not to move them into one of those homes, right? And
Yeah.
so now the caregiver, the kid, needs to make decisions, but they've got on the back of their mind, I promised my mom they would never move into this. And so they feel super guilty, but
Right.
they can't handle the care at home, right? So they have a fear of, is my parent going to fit in? Is this going to, go well? Are they going to be open to the idea? Are they going to hate me? right?
Yeah.
And that's, it's really difficult for caregivers, it's difficult for seniors. And I just find that a lot of the fear generally runs from the unknown.
Yeah.
Most of the people that move in say, I should have done this sooner, but you have to get them over that hurdle first.
I can imagine. I can imagine the guilt of not wanting to have to do something. But I've seen it firsthand from people that I know how overwhelming it is trying to take care of someone.
Yeah.
You know, it's just hard. For somebody that is not working with someone like you, but they are in this process of trying to figure out what to do with their parent, what is like one of the most important things they need to be looking for?
One of the most important things we educate our clients on is to make sure that if they do truly want to stay there for the rest of their lives, or they don't want to make another move, or they don't want to go into the long-term care system, to make sure they ask about care. Because most of the time, not all the care is offered. And I can give you an example from here. So
Yeah.
someone that has a progressive illness, say they have MS, for instance, or Parkinson's, something that's like a physical illness, or on the other side, they have cognitive dementia or anything under that umbrella, for instance, they
Right.
really need to look at, if they're looking for a full continuum for not moving again as much as we can possibly plan for, they need to have that care in-house, even though they don't need it. And so many homes will say, oh, yes, we can provide this physical care, and all the way up to palliative. And so then
Yeah.
our question as advocates for them, and what we ask our clients to ask if they're not with us, is, do you offer a two-person transfer? Right? So they've got one person helping them out of a chair, but
Yeah.
as Parkinson's progresses and different things like that, people get shaky, they get uneasy, and sometimes they need two people to do that. And more often
Right.
than not, the retirement home will say, oh, no, we don't offer that. Unfortunately, then, if you get to a point where you do need it, you have to move. And so it's
Yeah.
really just educating yourselves on those care pieces so that you can make the best and most educated decision that you can.
Yeah. What are some things like when do you decide? Is it it's time to move my parent to this place or find a place? Is it just when you're overwhelmed? I mean, is there a point you should do it before you get to that point or
There's so many points before that
yeah.
point. Unfortunately, most people wait till crisis because
Yeah.
no one wants to have these awkward conversations. No
Right.
one wants to parent their parent,
Right.
whatever that means for that person.
Yeah.
And, although, when we do elder care planning, it's for planning purposes. Okay, let's set you up in the house. And then when this plan doesn't work out anymore, what's our plan B? Right?
Yeah.
So it's just they're not as proactive as they should be,
Mhm.
which means that we help people at a crisis quite a lot. And so
Oh,
really
yeah.
planning is the best way forward so that people don't get to a point where they're super overwhelmed and then they have to dig
Right.
themselves out of being burnt out and they have to dig their loved one out of being in crisis. All well, who else knows, right? Everybody's in sandwich generation. The kid gets sick, is home from school, your job needs something. So, there is more, um, it could compile a lot more than people really understand that it can.
Yeah. You talked about caregiver burnout on your website, and I know it's a real thing. I've seen it before, but can you explain to people what that means, what it looks like, and what you do to help people with that?
I mean, in basic terminology, it's basically putting everyone else's needs in front of yours
Yeah.
and for an extended time, right? And everybody's time is different, right? People burn
Yeah.
out for different reasons, but in this circumstance, it's really that you're burning the wick at both ends. You're caring for your senior loved one, you're doing all your other stuff, and that loved one's demands get not demands, but the demands of
Right.
caring for them, I guess,
Yeah.
way to say it, gets more and more and more. And so you're adding it, adding it, adding it, and then eventually you literally just can't do it. That's the saying of putting your own oxygen mask on first, right? It's like not caring for yourself at all and putting all that energy out, eventually your cup's empty.
Yeah, I can see that. Is there, I mean, I know this is a job, I know this is a business for you, but what do you love about what you're getting to do for these people?
I love seeing people's faces
Yeah.
once they've went through the process and they can breathe and they
Yeah.
exhale and they say, oh, this, you made it so much more easy. Because honestly, yes, it's my, it's, as an entrepreneur, it's our job, it's our work, but you do it because you have passion for it. And
Right.
I've been doing this for so long now that, the driving force for us is helping that caregiver and relieving that stress. And we
Yeah.
can we can do it very quickly and very easily on our end because
Right.
we are like other brokers, like mortgage brokers and things like that. We have all of the skill level there. We just need people to plug into us so that we can take the burden off their shoulders, really.
Yeah. Sure. Do you have a moment or a family or a something that just really stands out to you that just it was the best? It was you were so happy to be able to help.
I there's a lot of different moments. I would tell you that one
Mhm.
that happened recently is I had a client that we had moved to a residence years ago. Her husband needed a lot of care, and so he ended up moving from there to a long-term care home, and then he ended up passing away. So a number of years. And
Right.
then she called me again and she said, Amy, I need to make a move. I want to live it up. I've got the funds to live it up. I want the best of the best. And so we were able to take her to a brand new community here,
Wow.
in a really huge suite. She was super independent. And the look on her face was like, I'm home finally. I'm living it
Oh,
up to the caliber of what I wanted to. I've got, unfortunately, her husband had passed, but so he left her the insurance and things like that, that she didn't have
yeah.
those choices before. And
Right.
so she had different choices she could make this time. And she's been so happy ever since because the community is just exactly what she was looking for. And it's really warm to be able to help. We help everybody, but to be able to help an independent senior really choose what is
Yeah.
really good for them and be able to really hand pick it, because the folks that need
Sure.
care, we can hand pick it to a certain extent, but sometimes we're up against waiting lists or not being able to find the care or whatnot. And so sometimes they have to settle for second choice or whatever that looks like for them. But when an independent person comes and says, this is my wish list, and we get to check all that stuff off, so
Yeah.
good.
That's awesome. That is awesome. Do you find whenever, I mean, I'm assuming people get to go visit these places as they're looking for them and see
Mm.
what they have to offer. Do you find that, I mean, I'm sure a lot of people are hesitant to have to move into these new places. Do you find that they end up being pretty happy, end up being pretty feeling settled once they
Yeah,
get where they, because they're probably, I'm sure it's just as difficult for them as it is for the child making the decision or trying to help them find a place. I'm
of
sure it
course.
is.
It's more difficult. They're giving up what they
Yeah,
have perceived as their independence.
sure.
They're giving up possibly a house or their, all those comforts of home
Yeah.
to do this.
Yeah.
I would say a lot of people don't want to move because they feel like they're giving up independence. But what I find is that they actually get more independence once they move, because there's so many
Yeah.
things that people can't do, but they still stay in their home as long as possible. And it's just nickel and diming all the services they can get out before having to move. And then when
Yeah.
they move, there's already things in place. There's social networks in place. There's meals in place, all the stuff that they were trying to piece together from like 12 different providers. And
Sure.
so they end up a bit more independent, especially the couples.
Yeah.
They move together or partners move together. One needs care, one doesn't. And when they can move in together, that person who needs care can get the care they need. The independent person can then become the spouse or the partner again,
Sure.
not do the care, and then they get to fly free as a bird. They get to do what they want, and they can do that because they know their loved one is taken care of.
Right.
So I do find that people adjust quite well. It's
Yeah.
not 100%, but most people do. It does take, though, some time, and each person's
Mhm.
different, but it takes, it can take a couple of weeks, it could take a couple of months.
Yeah.
Generally speaking, it just depends how open that person is.
Yeah. Is
Yeah.
there anything that I haven't asked you about?
The only other thing I can tell you is that we lead a lot with education. And so we have a lot of educational pieces on our website because this
Oh,
industry
good.
is so confusing.
Yeah.
We have like downloads and different things that people can fill in to make their lives easier. That's the same reason I put out my book, which is
Yeah.
called Breadcrumbs. And it's literally to help the caregivers understand what's going on in this new world that
Right.
we're now in.
Right.
And so, I really just want caregivers to know that they're not alone, and we have curated all of these extra supports, regardless of where you are in the world, that can help you so that you can piece by piece put your elder care journey together, especially if you can't find someone like us, or if you want
Right.
to do it on your own. There's pieces out there that you can get some education on.
Yeah. So if somebody is at that point and they know they have to do this, they can go to your website
Mhm.
and you do a like a virtual call or something with them where you can talk to them about their options. And is that how
Yeah,
that?
so when people are looking to look for retirement in retirement living, or depending on what services are, they can contact us right through our website, either by calendar link or by giving us a call. And then our client experience coordinator will go through kind of a list of questions that we have so that we can really pick out the important
Yeah.
pieces for them, whether it's needs or preferences. So we can really put together a holistic view of what they need and who's involved. A lot of times people may come from hospital, for instance, that they're the patient and they get discharged, but nobody's taken into consideration that they also have a spouse or a dog, or they need to be close to a daughter or whatever. And so that's the
Right.
kind of the positive side of, I mean, there's lots of positive sides, but another positive side of working with a consultant kind of things, because we want to look at it holistically for them.
Yeah, and y'all know what to ask. Y'all know what to look for, and
Yeah.
you've got the resources to do it. So, well, I think it's so important, and I think that this conversation is going to help people kind of have a little bit of direction of, okay, I know where to go. I know what to look for. Who to talk to when I need to make this decision. So, I appreciate what you do because I think it's so important, and I know you provide so much relief for adult children all over. Because it is scary, it's overwhelming, and there's just so many things to think about. So
Yeah. Yeah,
I
we do try.
appreciate you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate what you do. And I appreciate you talking to me today. And I wish you the very best with your business. I hope people get pointed to you after they hear this conversation.
Well, thanks so much for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll talk to you soon.
Take care.
Bye
Bye-bye.
bye.